Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second shelf and to another Books Weekly, my mostly regular Sunday video in which I discuss books that I've either finished from a previous week or read last week or started last week. And the first book I want to talk to you about is Nell Stevens' Bleaker House. If you remember Books Weekly from 2 weeks ago, I had already read the book then, but wanted to reread it because I couldn't quite make up my mind what I thought about it. But before I go into the book, I have to thank two booktubers because, as you might see, the sticker that annoyed me so much is gone. And Sarai from Sarai Talks Books and Literaturlärm, a German channel, they advised me on how to get rid of these horrible stickers, and it worked. So thank you both. And if you don't know their channels, I will leave links down below because they are really fantastic booktubers, both of them. So on to the book. Nell Stevens is a very young English writer who did an MFA program in Boston, and she is now pursuing a PhD in Victorian literature in London. This is part memoir because she tells us how she wanted to write a novel and failed. So there is this MFA program, as I said, and part of this program is that you can apply for a fellowship for 3 months to go to any place you want to write. And because Nell Stevens struggled with writing a novel, she thought, I'll go to the very remote place. So she chose one of the Falkland Islands, Bleaker Island, hence Bleaker House, because her idea was, if I'm really isolated, if there's no life to get in the way, I can write a novel. Well, it didn't work because this is a book of her failed attempt. So it's part memoir, but also part flashbacks of her life during the MFA program, her earlier attempts to write, and it also includes part of her fiction writing. So the novel that never came to be, part of that is included, and also some shorter fiction. Now, my indecision with the book was sort of, had something to do with the fact that I did not like this combination of fiction and non-fiction too much. I was a bit annoyed by the fiction parts because I didn't see why they were included, other than that Nell Stevens couldn't quite let go, even though she acknowledged that the book was no good. And I thought it is sort of a sneaky way of getting a not good book published anyway by including it in a memoir. And that feeling didn't really go away when I read it the second time. Another thing that bothered me a bit was that although the writing is good, especially how Nell Stevens describes nature and the loneliness on the Bleaker Island, and her way of trying to deal with this and trying to write, her humor is sometimes rather condescending towards the inhabitants of the Falkland Islands, because she not only visited Bleaker Island, but she also stayed in Stanley and in other places on the Falklands. And the way she describes the inhabitants, they come across as rather backward people. And I didn't like that part that much either. But it's an enjoyable read for the rest. So it's not that I didn't like it at all. And the best parts, as I said, are certainly the parts where she describes nature, but also if you are interested in writing, or if you are attempting to write or to create anything yourself, the ways she describes that struggle and what she learned and how she was taught, that is certainly interesting. But yeah, I have mixed feelings. So if you read it, or if you're interested in reading it, let me know, because like I said, it's not entirely bad by any means, but mixed feelings. The next book I read is also a bit of a mixed feeling book, and that is Silver Sparrow by Tayari Jones. Tayari Jones was born in 1970 in Atlanta. She's a Black American writer, and this was published in 2011. Was her third novel, and I didn't know her. I hadn't read anything from her previously, but I saw an announcement for her next book, An American Marriage, which will come out beginning of 2018, and that sounded interesting, and so I wanted to check her out, and I found this in a used bookstore and bought it. Sorry about the constant change of light. We have clouds, and then we have sun, and then we have rain. Typical July. Anyway, I opened this book, and the first sentence is, "My father, James Witherspoon, is a bigamist." And I thought it was a great opening. I wanted to read more, and that's the reason I got this one. So the first part of the book is told from the perspective of Dana. It's set in Atlanta in the 1980s, and Dana is James Witherspoon's daughter, and he is married illegally to her mother Gwen, because when Gwen and James met, James had already another wife, Laverne, and a daughter, Therese. So it's the story from Dana's perspective, how she, first of all, deals with this very strange situation. It's also a coming of age, because Dana, when the book opens and when she starts telling, is in her early teens. So it's about school and first kiss and boyfriends. But the main focus is on the family relation and what it means to be the other daughter, the other family. Because, of course, James' real quote-unquote family doesn't know about the existence, knows of the existence of Gwen and Dana. Dana and Gwen, both know of the existence of the other family. And this dynamic of how you deal with that you are a secret, you know something that the other part of the family doesn't know, is really, really well written and interesting. And it's also, it gives us some flashbacks to her mother's, Gwen's, life when she meets James, and he never made a secret out of the fact that he was married. So I really liked that part of the story. And then the mixed feelings come in, because halfway through the book, the perspective changes from Dana to Therese, so the other daughter. And although this part was equally well written and equally interesting, it's sort of this sudden change after half of the book. It completely pulled me out of the story, and it took me almost to the end of the book to get into the story again, because it was, I'm not describing this very well, but it was this weird feeling of getting pulled out of a book, excuse me, and suddenly pulled into another book. So I couldn't cope with that, which is probably my fault, and shouldn't mean that you should read the book, because I still thought it was a good book. But this sudden change of perspective was something that I couldn't deal. Yeah, stupid me. But anyway, it was well written. I thought the story was interesting, especially the power dynamics between those two families, and what happens when the other family, Therese and Laverne, find out. So the topic was really interesting, and the writing was good. So maybe you should give it a try, and if you have read it, let me know what you thought of it. And the next book is a book in which I have to start with a confession, because the book is Robin Hobb's Assassin's Apprentice, the very first book in her 16 books long fantasy series set in the realm of the Elderlings. And the first 3 books are the Farseers trilogy, and Assassin's Apprentice is the first one of those. I've never read Robin Hobb, ever. So I'm over 20 years late to the game, because the first book, Assassin's Apprentice, was published in 1995. And somehow it never appealed to me. Partly because, if you're following my channel for any length of time, you know that I'm not a very big fantasy reader. A lot of fantasy is series, and I can't commit to series. I have a difficulty with that, and I don't know my way around in the fantasy genre. So I never picked up Robin Hobb, because I thought 16 books, no way. But last week, in a spur of the moment, late one evening, I thought I will start reading Robin Hobb. So I downloaded the book and read it in almost one sitting, and I really liked it. You probably know about the book, so I don't have to tell you much. It's set in a fantasy world, the Six Duchies, and we follow the story of Fitz, who is the illegitimate son of a king. And Fitz is brought to the palace when he was 6 years old, and he is a bastard. And we learn about his life as an illegitimate son, but we also learn about his apprenticeship, because he is taught to be an assassin, which I thought was quite cool. That's something like that. I never read something like that, so I thought that was cool. A lot of people, I read reviews afterwards, a lot of people think the first book is kind of slow, and that's true. It's really a build-up. In the first half of the book, there's not much action. We learn about the Buckkeep, the main city of the Six Duchies. We learn about the people, the king and his 3 sons. The father of Fitz had 2 brothers. And we learn about his apprenticeship, not only with as an assassin, but also he learns how, to fight. He learns how to care for the animals, and I like this sort of slow build-up. And we also learn the central, obviously, I think, to the story about the magic system in the Six Duchies. So there are 2 sort of magic skills that people can have. The first is called the skill, and that's a form of telepathy, and the second is called the wit, in which you can communicate with animals. And Fitz has the wit without ever being taught, but the wit is considered evil, so he has to keep that one a secret. And later on he's taught also the skill. And the book ends when Fitz has his first assignment as an assassin, and things go horribly wrong, and he's hurt and but survives, and then the book ends. So I'm still not sure whether I will manage to read all 16 of the series, and you know me, I'm very bad with series, but coming to the books that I started reading the second one, Royal's Assassin. So I liked it well enough to start with the second book. I've just read 10 pages, so I don't know, but it starts right when the first book ends. So after his first assignment as an assassin, when he recovers because he was badly injured, and then I'm just at the moment after 20 pages or so when he goes back to Buckkeep. I'm curious to know what happens. So far I'm intrigued enough to want to continue with the series. And I started also another book, which I just very briefly want to mention to keep this video under 15 minutes, and that is Zinzi Clemmons' first novel, her debut, What We Lose. I was sent this kindly by the publisher on my request, and Zinzi Clemmons is an American writer, Black American writer. She was born in Philadelphia, and her parents are, her mother is from South Africa. And I was intrigued because it's a semi-autobiographical novel about a young woman, Tandi, who is torn between 2 worlds, South Africa and America, and who also has to deal with the grief of losing her mother to cancer. I've only read the first 5 pages, so I'm not going to say any more than that. I will report back when I read the whole book. So this was it for this Books Weekly. Thank you very much for watching. As always, talk to me in the comments, please. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you all soon in my next one. Bye-bye.